Cup and the league all to be won. Everyone knows there's a job to be done, and with a team so fine, I'm proud they're mine. We'll be singing this song. For real Pars of Family Athletic, and now we are on song. For real Pars of Family Athletic, and we'll go marching on.
The Dunfermline Athletic Former Players Association podcast is sponsored by Starnut Apparel. Affordable and stylish clothing born on the terraces. Just head to www.starnutapparel.co.uk.
Welcome to Walking Down Holbeath Road, the podcast where we take a stroll down memory lane with the legends who have once donned the black and white stripes of Dunfermline Athletic Football Club. Brought to you by the Dunfermline Athletic Former Players Association, this podcast is your front row seat to the untold stories and career highlights from the men who have proudly represented the Pars. I'm your host Mikey Mulkiewicz, and in each episode we'll sit down with a former player or coach to relive their journey through the highs and lows of football, and of course their memories from East End Park. Whether you're a lifelong supporter or new to the Pars family, join us as we celebrate the history, the passion and the legacy of Dunfermline Athletic, one conversation at a time. In this episode, we talk to a former midfielder who joined the club on schoolboy forms under Jockey Scott and would then make his first team debut during the 95-96 season under Bert and Dick. Steven Ferguson only played one game for the first team, however his career in football has been remarkable. He's transitioned from a player to a coach to a manager, and now he's chief executive of Ross County Football Club in the Premier League. His journey with the club has been remarkable, and just last year he was honoured as the SPFL's CEO of the Year. In this podcast we chat about his YTS days at East End Park, learning under Bert and Dick, the incredible 95-96 season, and his love for the Pars. We also chat about his current role as chief exec at Ross County and what that job involves. So sit back, relax and enjoy this chat with Steven Ferguson. So, thanks for joining us on the latest podcast, Steven Ferguson. How are we, Steven?
Very good, thank you. Good to chat with you.
Good man, good man. Thanks for your time today. I know you're a busy boy up in Dingwall, so brilliant. Thank you.
No bother at all. Looking forward.
Right. To kick us off, 5 questions. So we'll start off your first one. Who was your childhood hero?
Childhood hero, probably coincides with World Cups for me when you're growing up. So certainly 86 is kind of like the first one I can really remember, and obviously Maradona was so influential in that World Cup. So Maradona would be high up in the list. And then the World Cup 1990, I think that's when Paul Gascoigne burst into the scene. So I would have to include Paul Gascoigne in one of them lists. Just people I like to watch, exciting, played in the same area of the pitch and stuff like that. So always trying to, I suppose, look up to guys like that as well. So I would put the two in. That's in the staple one. Kenny Dalglish has to go in there as well. I think it was only videotape I had them. I watched that constantly when I was a kid. So it was, I would go if I was, I know you asked for one, but I've gave you 3. I would go Dalglish, Maradona and Gascoigne.
3 legends. See someone, obviously, like yourself as a midfielder, looking at a player like Paul Gascoigne when you were younger, would you try and base your game on a player like that? Would you look at what he was doing and try and kind of replicate it?
I think it's natural that that's what you try and do. Now, clearly never achieved it, but you were always trying to pick up little bits. And at that time he was doing stuff in the middle of the park that other people weren't doing. He was scoring goals, he was making tackles, he looked like he was enjoying the game for sure. So no, you would always try and pick up anything you could from anyone you could, I suppose.
Brilliant. Which leads us into the next one. Your dream team. If you had a 5-a-side team, what 5 players would you love in your dream 5-a-side team?
Jeez, I would include day 3 in it if I was talking about a worldwide and anybody with that one. But if I was to go with Dunfermline one, since it's around Dunfermline, certainly with people that I was involved in as a young player at Dunfermline, I would a 5-a-side team. I would go with Big Ian Westwater in goal. I would go with Neil Cooper as my defender. I would go with Craig Robertson and Paul Smith as my 2 midfielders, and I would go with Hamish French through the middle. If that was my dream team from a Dunfermline time, that's who I would go with. Definitely the 5. 5 of them really influential. 5 of them senior players. I'm glad it's 5-a-side because I'm not sure how much ground would get covered, barring Hamish maybe, but they would have been guys that I certainly looked up to, and they were very forthcoming with little nuggets to young players back in the time, and obviously sticks with you. And they were all top professionals, but also top people as well.
Brilliant. Great answer. Great players, which we'll cover more off later on. Best piece of memorabilia from your career in football?
I'm not really one for collecting stuff, to be fair. Looking back now, I wish I did, but I never used to give away strips or look to get strips from anybody either. So, been fortunate enough to win a couple of medals through the years. I've kept them, but they're in a drawer, probably in my mum's house, mum and dad's. I'm actually struggling with that. I scored 1 hat-trick in my career, and I've still got that match ball. So it's no relevant to anybody else. But that's probably the one thing I think my son's got in his room. And that's the one thing that I can think of off the top of my head that I've still got. I never really kept much, to be honest, through the years. Only now looking back, it seems to be more of a looking at all the brilliant strips behind you there. I wish I'd done that, but I didn't. It's too late now, so I just need to stick with that one ball I've got in my son's room.
Brilliant. The thing is with footballers, you tend to find you've either got one end of the spectrum's like they collect loads and they've got everything, or they've got absolutely nothing. There's no like in between. So
You're right. It makes you laugh as you went in. If you came into my house, you wouldn't know that I've been involved in football full time since I was 15. There's no one trace of it. But when you look back, maybe you should have. If you won a bottle of champagne or a bottle of whiskey or something, I just used to drink them or give them away, and then they would drink them. So I've not got piles of stuff lying about anywhere that could get cracked open or get hung up on the wall, but it's all in my head. Got all the memories. That will do for me.
Brilliant, mate. Right, next question. If you had an unlimited budget, Mr. McGregor says you can sign anyone you want in the world for Ross County, who would it be and why?
Good question as well. I would go Haaland, and the only reason I would go Haaland is the game's changed, as we all know, and the legends that I spoke about earlier are a different type now. It's all pace and power, isn't it? Scoring goals, pace and power. So certainly at the moment, Haaland at Man City it can be unplayable at times. I know he's playing in an exceptionally good team that's creating loads of chances for him, but I think he'll score goals. I think he would even score goals at Ross County. There you go.
I think he would score goals anywhere, to be fair.
I think so. I think it's just when you look at the modern day player, he sums it up, how powerful he is, how quick he is, and how ruthless he is in front of goal. So, and listen, it'd be Ronaldo's and Messi's and all these guys have been fantastic. But I think the here and now, right now, I think he was the one that I would go for, and see if we can score some goals up here. That would be nice.
Brilliant. He's only young as well. That's the mad thing about it.
It's crazy when you look at these stats. His stats are frightening, and I can't believe he gets criticism. He still just shows you what football's like, where he can score the amount of goals he scores, and at the stage of his career he's at, and he's still, people question if he's good enough to start the game and stuff like that. Is just bonkers for me. I like him a lot, actually. I would take him in a minute.
Maybe one day, mate. Maybe one day. You never know.
Fingers crossed.
Last one for this section. What's been your biggest regret in football, would you say?
I'm not one for regrets, to be fair. So, biggest, probably more biggest disappointment rather than regret. I would have liked to have played more games for Dunfermline. I joked with you when you asked me to come on the podcast that I don't quite think that one league game kind of merits a go on the podcast, but it was a different, it was a different time and good things. I believe everything happens for a reason, and I wouldn't have spent then 22 years at Ross County if I did play more games at Dunfermline. So that would be one, not a regret, because it was right at the time. It was definitely right at the time, but I would have liked to have played more games for Dunfermline for sure, 100%. So that's not so much a regret, but one of the disappointments.
Cool. We'll touch more on that as we go through the podcast. But let's go back to the early years. Born in May 77 and an Edinburgh boy. So tell us a little bit about growing up and your early years playing football.
I brought up in Wester Hailes in Edinburgh. A Hearts fan, I suppose, as a young boy. Was always kind of supporting Hearts. Had aspirations to play football like everybody else in the street. And was lucky enough to play with... I played at Hutchie Vale and Links United as boys' clubs in Edinburgh. In Glen Park, 3 clubs. Thoroughly enjoyed my time at all of them. Playing with my mates, just enjoying playing football. And back then it was S-form signings that could kind of come alive at 14 years of age. And as always, back then there was, we talk about how much the game's moved on and stuff like that, but only when you look back, there was a lot of great stuff that's going on now that was going on 20, 25 years ago as well, 30 years ago. So I actually, in a number of clubs looking at us, as everybody did back then, there seemed everybody had a wee, there was scouts everywhere, there was every school game, every boys' club game was getting watched. There was no Club Academy Scotland, so you were literally cramming the games in, which for me was brilliant, because you were sometimes playing Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And I signed a S-form very quickly, and it was Dunfermline that I enjoyed the most. So all the teams that I'd been in and done a bit of training with, I'd been in at Hearts, I'd been at Dundee was another one, I think. And Dunfermline was the one that I seemed to really enjoy and really like the people that was involved in it. So I signed very early. I signed an S-form at 14 years of age, and with a view to hopefully getting a YTS, it was at the time, when you turned 16. So that was my plan, and thankfully that happened.
What was the dynamics of all that coming together then? It was Jockey Scott who was in charge at that point, but who was involved at kind of youth level at Dunfermline when you got involved?
Yeah. See, at the time we used to train once a week for a while in Edinburgh itself. Paddy McGovern was his name. Really good coach. Really passionate about Dunfermline as well, to be fair. And he was involved with that kind of like Edinburgh, what we would call a satellite centre now. And there was probably only 6 or 7 boys that would go to a gym hall, an old school gym hall. There wasn't anything fancy, and crash the ball about there for a couple of hours just once a week. And then the big thing that I liked at Dunfermline was all the school holidays. You were based at Dunfermline, you were in kind of full time during the school holidays, which was down at Petrivi with guys like Jimmy Thompson, and initially it was Walter Bothwick, and then Graham Robertson was involved kind of with the SFA development officer bit. So, and at that time, like you said, Jockey Scott was the manager, Gordon Wallace was the assistant manager, and I was just really involved with them during the school holidays. And when I say involved, they were there. They would dip in and out of sessions. I can remember them both being apps. I know they're two kind of Scottish football legends in regarding what they've done in their own careers, but I can remember both of them were really, really good coaches. And what I think the thing that stood out to me was the standards that they set was really, really high. And I think that bode well for a learning environment for young players as well. So I used to love going across in the school holidays, spend the whole day training and back again the next day, which was really good. It was really good, and I felt from a grounding point of view, it was a brilliant learning environment, and there's such characters around the place. That was the thing that was so strong for me, was just everybody had a character, everybody had a story to tell, everybody had, I felt everybody's best interests at heart as well. So I genuinely cannot speak highly enough about every single thing that I encountered as a young, I suppose you could say, a young youth player at Dunfermline. Jockey Scott coming at my house to sign us. So I remember he had a red BMW. That's one thing I can remember. There wasn't many BMWs kicking about Wester Hales at that time, to be fair, so it kind of stood out. But even just that little touch, the manager going to 15-year-old boy's house to offer him a YTS contract that meant a lot to my family and stuff like that as well. It was a big deal for us as a family. So I think just wee bits like that, I thought at the time that Dunfermline just done it really, really well. And they
acted like a big club, didn't they?
For me, they are still are, but at that time, there was just that magic around Dunfermline. I don't know it's really difficult to explain it, because it was just such a good ground and it was just such a positive place for me. I loved everybody that was involved in it, and still speak fondly now, all these years later, about the experience that I was given at Dunfermline by so many different people. It was just, it was special. It was a special place back then. And it was, it coincided obviously with unfortunately Jockey losing his job, but then Bert and Dick taking over from Jockey and Gordon, and it just then cranked up again for me then, because they two were just wonderful.
We'll move on to Bert and Dick shortly, but first, your YTS days. So what was your jobs and duties around the ground as an YTS boy?
Brilliant. I loved every minute of it. And if I could have got more money and still done the YTS jobs, I would have done it. The camaraderie between the boys. Joe Nelson was pivotal in everything. He kept man, but he looked after all the YTSs, and he was the godfather of the YTSs. That just, again, he's just his power, and he's the way that he went about things, his love for Dunfermline, and he's just the way that he treated us was just fantastic. And you done everything. This is what I'm saying. We have apprentices now, just like Dunfermline will have, and we done everything. We pay. I think I've certainly swept. Certainly, it was the old. It's not the new stadium now as it was, but back then it was back to the terracings and stuff like that. But we certainly swept. I've swept every inch of East End Park. I've painted every wall at East End Park. I'd clean every car. And it was like every club car, every minibus would be cleaned and hoovered and everything like that. So, and it was a full day. I used to get the train across from Edinburgh, and my train was 5 past the hour to go home. And it was just a great ground, and they wouldn't let me away early to catch the train. So I couldn't get down. We finished at 5 o'clock, and I couldn't get down to the train station for 5 past. And it became a bit of a standing joke. They said, "Can I get away 15 minutes early to run down and catch the train?" No, you work to 5 o'clock, and that's what you'll do. And it was just accepted. It was brilliant. No bother. So I'd sat for an hour in the train every day. Sat for an hour at the train station, because it was back to Bert and Dick saying, if you don't work hard enough, you'll be in C.R. Smith overalls next week. They loved that one, as everybody's heard before. And it was just that they made you. It was hard. They made you work. They made you train. They made you play hard. But they made the grounding that they gave young players. For me, just my opinion, people probably disagree with it. I just thought it was brilliant, and that togethership and the leadership that you learn from certain people and stuff. Again, if I was looking back on my own career, everything that I've done in my career was shaped at Dunfermline and shaped by the people at Dunfermline.
What did you learn from Bert and Dick?
Bert and Dick for me they were pretty unique in how they went about things. They dovetailed perfectly in regarding their own personalities and what they brought to the table. But again, it was all around character for them. For if you look at everybody that was involved, and you look at when I knew I was coming on to speak to you, thinking back to my time there, and the team that was in and around, and you look at the characters and the professionals that were in that group. It must have been a tough group to manage for them, because there was so many at that time and at that level, big players, and it just was pretty seamless for me. There was always an element of fun, and I think that's what stuck with me. Nothing was a drag. I ever felt anything was a drag. Everything was always around enjoying what you were doing and probably appreciating what you were doing as well. And I think they were really good at getting that message across. Obviously, they won the league, which was fantastic at the time. But there was so much more. They had a real interest in people, and they had a real interest in people doing well. And obviously, both of them had Dunfermline at their core of their own thinking as well. So you just felt that it was for me it was a brilliant time, because everything just, all the stars aligned for that one. There was tragedy as well in that season, where people just rallied together, and I think because there was so much togetherness at that time in the group, whether it be the young boys or whether it be with the senior team, everybody was 100% pulling in the same direction, and you have to give Bert and Dick all the credit for that, because they were orchestrating it from the top.
Yeah. Am I right in saying from 1993, Bert and Dick put you into the first team pool, but then it wasn't until 95, 96 you made that start? Can you remember what game it was?
I travelled a lot with the first team, because there was only 2 subs at that time as well, and 2 subs and then a goalie, so 3 subs. And listen, Paul Smith and Craig Robertson were playing in the middle of the park, and the 2 of them were fantastic. So you understood why you weren't getting a sniff, because they were probably the mainstay in the middle of the park that played every week, and understood that. You'd like Sir Mark McCulloch, who was a couple of years older than me, who actually went on to play with Ross County as well, and Mark played in the middle of the park. So if there was a cover for a suspension or an injury, then Mark kind of got the nod, which I would, looking back, would agreed with that as well. But yeah, so we did travel. You used to pin the squad up on the board at the weekend, and they would always need a 15, 16 man to travel in case there was anything happening. So done that a number of times, obviously over a couple of years. And I remember I obviously remember my debut. It was St Johnstone at St Johnstone, and we got beat 1-0. And I didn't start the game. I came on, I think, probably with about 15, 20 minutes to go. And I was just delighted to have finally made my debut. I was only 18, and it was a big moment for me. I always remember it was at McDermott Park, and again, at least you can, albeit just one game, at least you can say you've played for Dunfermline. That's what I used to always say to myself. But I thought there was going to be obviously more chances to do it, but didn't pan out that way. But I'll forever be grateful for the opportunity to make my debut in a club like Dunfermline in a season where they won the league. Really nothing but positive memories. Again, it sounds like I'm trying to promote Dunfermline here, but I genuinely loved every minute of it, and I was really grateful, albeit for that just one game. I wish it was more.
It was a special time though, eh? Like you say, it was just like a magical club at that point. It was just something really special.
Again, because I was there, I felt it at the time. It's only when you look back that you really realised how special it was. It was just everybody. So it was even like the volunteers to the ground staff. You had, I think it was Willie, old Willie, young Willie, and Kevin were in the ground. They done the ground, and of course we had to do the mats when the frost come and stuff like that. So the laugh that we had with them, whether we were covering their house in talcum powder or whatever we were doing there, to them try to set us on fire at one stage, I remember, just for the crack. So stuff like that was just brilliant. Then the young boys were a really tight group. One of my best mates, John Fraser, who was in that group, had John up for a charity golf day last month up here, and we Jenny's wife just up for a bite to eat and a game of golf, which is great. That relationship was all built on the ground staff days. John went on to play a lot more games than me for Dunfermline, to be fair. So he was great. But I've mentioned Joe, and you had old Willie doing the kit, and you had, Graham Robertson was the development officer, and you had Dave McParlin was the head of youth, Bert and Dick, obviously. Pink would come dipping in and out for, a bit of sports science back then, if that's what you could call it. Pip Yates was the physio, who had a brilliant reputation at being a really good physio. But even what you learnt from him around standards of keeping his room clean and stuff like that it's just, for me, it was magical. It was brilliant, and it coincided with success on the pitch. It maybe wasn't so magical if you didn't have the success on the pitch, but that group of players, that management team, they deserve all the credit for actually completing the loop, I suppose, by not only being getting it right off the pitch, but the hardest part, as we all know, is always getting it right on the pitch, and they got it right on the pitch, and you can go through that group. Fantastic players at that level, and it was brilliant to be involved in it.
Superb. You talk about the players. One big player we lost that season, 95-96, was Norrie McCarthy.
Yeah,
he was quite a big influence on the young boys at the club. What was that period like for you guys as players?
Obviously, everybody knows how special Norrie was to the football club, to the town, and to the squad of players as well. Talk about being larger than life, and talk about character. Then obviously that's the two things you spring to mind if you speak about Norrie. And obviously, as a young boy, you were just watching. Really, you never really had to take any responsibility for that, like the senior players did, and like the staff did. But obviously, the feel, the ripple effect right through the football club was something I don't think anybody would forget that was involved in at that time. And like I'm saying, that Norrie's brother actually stayed just round the corner for me in Western Hales, Rab, and so I knew Norrie's brother Rab as well. So it was one that had such an effect on not only the football club and the people involved in the football club, but obviously the town and Scottish football. You know what I mean? It was a massive, massive loss to everybody. And I think that's when you speak about the senior players at the time, how they stepped up to the plate, how, I suppose, was it written in the stars? Sometimes I believe it must have been the way that the season panned out. And for them to kind of regroup, the number 4 Shutt was retired, and it was just all the wee special moments. It wouldn't have been right if we didn't win the league that year, because everything deserved to pan out the way that it did, as a total nod to Norrie and the brilliant servant, and obviously he was to the football club, and the influence that he had on certainly the young boys. But it wasn't just the young boys; it was the senior boys as well. He was such an influential character, as everybody knows. Yeah,
definitely. You mentioned promotion there. So the end of the season, the Airdrie game. What's your memories? You didn't play in the game, but I remember you modelling the following season's home kit and doing a lap around the pitch. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I see. I used to get all the good jobs. I do remember that. It was just, again, I do remember that actually. I remember Mark Miller's penalty. That's what I do remember. And again, I just always felt the crowd. I remember when East End Park was jumping like that with the crowd in, and it just, again, it was just and I never got to play again. I played a lot of like the Fife Cup games and that, and obviously reserve games, loads of them. But I've been back as a manager and managed against Dunfermline at East End Park. But for me, it's like anything else. When you're a young boy, that kind of first thing that you fall in love with, you can't get out of your system. And I think East End Park's a bit like that for me. And that's what I remember. I remember the crowd on that day. I remember the atmosphere on that day. I remember Mark Miller's penalty really, really clearly. And I also remember modelling that strip round the track. Makes a wee change when running round that, that's for sure.
Do you remember who joined you doing that modelling session?
I can't. It must have been somebody. It must have been, I don't know, was that Jerry Farrell or Tam Calla? I'm trying to think of people that weren't involved in the game that day. I couldn't think, I'll be totally guessing. Do you know?
Earlier. Aye, Mark McCulloch.
Oh, was it Mark? Was it?
Aye, I've got photos of it in the archives. That's why I need to send you.
Was it Mark McCulloch? Mark's a good pal of mine as well. Obviously, our time at Ross County together, played a lot of games together up here. A good guy. He's a good guy as well. So again, just relationships that were built in Dunfermline are still going strong today, which is always nice to say that as well.
Brilliant, mate. And you must have enjoyed your night, because I've seen a few pictures of the celebrations and you're front row of them all.
Aye, I loved it. Again, you were learning from the best. I think I'm blaming that group of players for shaping my social life ever since, because that's another thing I remember about Dunfermline. It was just such good fun, socially as well as on the pitch. Now, I know the game's different now, players are different now, but back then it was just magical in regarding just being involved in that and listening to some of the stories and being involved in some of the stories that transpired from that was just brilliant. I think, again, it's back to being that best ground than ever. But again, if you're summing any of that up, it's just characters. It's just you could sit and listen to, and that's what we did as young players. It wasn't that you were ever holding court or you were doing anything special. It was just that you were hanging in with the senior boys and I suppose learning how it's done.
We are Flow Digital Pharmacy, and we are proud to sponsor the Walking Down the Holbeath Road podcast. Our easy-to-use app is a convenient way to access your NHS prescription medication, and our team of trained pharmacists are helping thousands of people to access the support and medication they need. If you're registered with a GP who's based in England, you can use the Flow app to securely and conveniently send them NHS medication requests and arrange delivery to a location of your choice at a time that suits you. This means you can avoid the hassle of contacting your GP and making unnecessary round trips to eventually collect your prescription. Find out more at We Are Flow, spelled PHLO. That's weareflow.com.
By 96, the club had gone into the Premier League, but obviously you got frustrated not getting a game, so the opportunity come to join Ross County. So how did all that kind of transpire?
Again, at that time, we've always played a lot of reserve games, and Neil Cooper was coming to the end of his career. The great Neil Cooper was coming to the end of his career, and I was starting my career. So we played a lot of games in the reserves together. I was his boot boy, and so I used to clean his boots and look after all his kit and stuff like that. So our relationship was always, again, somebody that I looked up to and would have run through brick walls for, and did. Having the state in my body now, right enough, it feels like I did as well. But he always said to us, true story, that he was always earmarked to go into coaching. Big Neil was, and he was doing the pro license. He was part of that young coaches, players coming to the end of their career and the emergency young coaches coming up, and he was part of that group. And he was always going to get a job, but he didn't know what job it was he was going to get. So he did say wherever he got a job, he was going to come in and he was going to try and take me. And to be fair, he was true to his word. He got the Ross County job. The chairman obviously sold Big Coops the dream as well, and Coops has bought into it, and he got the Ross County job. And I've got to be honest, I didn't know where Ross County was. I didn't know where Dingwall was. I had no interest in Ross County at all, because my focus was always Dunfermline. It was always where I wanted to play in the team at that time. So, but he got the job, and his first phone call was myself to say, listen, would you come up? We're building something here. We're going to build a young team. People like myself that had dipped their toe into the first team environment, had been in and around the first team environment for a number of years, but were needing that opportunity to kind of showcase themselves. So he seen me as part of that, and signed me to move up to Ross County along with 4 or 5 other boys. That Kenny Gilbert came from Hull City, Roy McBain came from Dundee United, and myself came from Dunfermline, and that was kind of the start of Ross County transitioning from the Highland League to a full-time team. And that next 7 years, 6 of them with Big Coops as the manager, was again a magical time where we came up through the leagues with what was the old 3rd division, 2nd division, into what is now the Championship. And again, under Neil's leadership, it was just a magical time, because it was just an extension of what we were doing at Dunfermline. He was, as everybody knows, he was larger than life. He was as big a character as you were ever going to get. He just brought so much fun to everything that he did. And we managed to coincide winning games and winning leagues and stuff like that at that time. So it was a brilliant time as well. But that's how it came about. Would I wanted to leave Dunfermline? No. Was I broken-hearted when I did? Yes. I spoke to Dave McParland. I spoke to Graham Robertson. I spoke to Dick, and I spoke to Bert. And although they obviously thought I was good, they thought I was good, and they thought I was okay, but they didn't see me playing in their team, and they were honest with that. And I really appreciated their honesty for that, because it let me put Dunfermline to bed and then go and start my journey at Ross County. And that's what I did. And I've been back 7 years as a player, and then 15 years as either academy director, coach, manager, now chief executive. So again, I'm a believer in everything happens for a reason. I definitely would have wanted to play more games at Dunfermline. I think everybody knows that. But I certainly have no complaints with everything that's happened at Ross County, and I'm extremely grateful for that as well.
Brilliant, mate. Well, you spent a few years at Ross County, 7 years you mentioned. You then moved to Ayr United and then stints at Brecon, Dumbarton and Stenhousemuir. And then 2010, you returned to Ross County as a coach. So was coaching always something that you had in mind once you'd finished playing?
See, at Dunfermline, I never had any injuries at all, touch wood, and I was always fit, ready to play. Ross County, I had a few injuries, but nothing that kept me out for any period of time. And we played 220 games or whatever it was up here. And then I went here, and then the wheels just come off my bogey kind of thing. You know, I had injury after injury, operation after operation. And I was never the quickest. I think that's why I didn't play in Dunfermline's first team as well, to be honest. I wasn't quite quick enough. And I just got injured, more injured, and just got even slower, I suppose, and couldn't quite do what you were wanting to do. And injuries just kept piling up. And even when I then left Ayr United to try and train less, but be able to play the games, I still was picking up injuries, and they weren't just niggly injuries. You know, we're talking about broken legs and broken cheekbones and broken thumbs that kept me out for ages as well, which was bizarre. But yeah, so my Campbell Money, I would need to kind of credit Campbell Money with that. When he was at Ayr and I was injured all the time, he started to put me on all my coaching certificates and badges and stuff, and save me moping about the football club being injured. He put me out, and I took the under-18s and I went through the coaching certificate. I started the journey on the coaching certificates, and that kind of teed me up for what was to come after playing. And because of the injuries, I got to 32. But if I'm being honest, the couple of years before that was probably I was probably getting a game because of my voice rather than my legs, to be honest.
See, when you started that coaching, did you enjoy it straight away, or was it something that you thought, I'm not too sure if I want to pursue this?
Probably because all I knew was football. I didn't have anything else. You know, I didn't know what else I could do. My dad had a taxi and a black cab in Edinburgh, and thinking, could I go and drive my dad's taxi or stuff like that? At least it would have been a living and stuff like that for after football, and a good living for that, taxi drivers and stuff in Edinburgh. But it was never for me. It's never really what I wanted to do. Felt I still had something to offer. But even though I went on to manage Ross County's first team, I never wanted to be a first team manager as such. I wasn't desperate to be a manager. I enjoyed the development side of it. I enjoyed the coaching on the pitch rather than the politics of being a manager, I suppose. And so I did enjoy it right from the start, but I knew how difficult it was going to be. I knew nobody was ever just going to hand you a job. So I was pretty determined in getting through everything I could. So at least if I got the opportunity to get a job, a coaching job somewhere, then there was nothing blocking me from doing that. And so, yeah, again, good times, enjoyed it. UEFA Pro licence holder now, done the A, the B, the youth, the children. So I've got everything you can do. And I suppose that's allowed me to do what the career I've had off the pitch, which has been academy, has been first team, and has now been off the pitch. So, yeah, grateful for Campbell for having the foresight to see that the playing career was on the decline, and obviously thought I had something to offer off the pitch. So grateful for that and the opportunities I've had since then.
Brilliant, mate. You touched on it there. 4 years you were appointed the club's first academy director at Ross County.
Yeah.
What did that job entail?
Again, we're pretty unique up at Ross County in regarding just the area that we cover. So we run an academy, a Club Academy Scotland, in the National Games programme. But again, that academy director bit was Club Academy Scotland was changing. So Ross County needed to change at the time. We've always had a good academy. We've always had academy manager. And we've always had a real emphasis and input going into that. But I think that just coincided with the association changing what they were doing and the criteria becoming much more of an exercise of getting it right off the pitch as well as on the pitch. And I think the chairman obviously seen that I was the guy to kind of cross that over and do that. So it's like any academy manager or director, it coincides with everything on pitch, from the children's pathway right the way through to what we used to call the development squad, what we're now calling this transition group between academy and first team. So it's a big remit, but It's a remit I really enjoyed. Like I really enjoyed it. I love the seeing people getting better. I think it's easy to see that in an academy than in a first team, and where you can really see individual growth from players is pretty satisfying if you're involved in it.
The main aspect of that job, I suppose, is developing young players to try and get them up to the first team level. So what was it you guys looked for in a young player, and how young were you looking at players?
Again, we'll not be any different to any other academy, and we'll have our development plans and stuff like that. But I think where I was, and again, it's probably, listen, you can be technically good as a young player, and there's millions that we've all played with people or coached people that are really technically can't be any better. The bit is, and I think it stems from my Dunfermline days, is you can have the best left foot or you can have the best right foot, but see if you can't deal with the situation or see if you can't get to the ball first, then it doesn't matter if you've got the best left foot or the best right foot. So I think that character, I think that trying to get it right off the pitch is really important to getting it right on the pitch. I think they're getting it right on the pitch. I agree. The technical bit, the development bit for young players is something that everybody's got a manual to be able to do that. I think what you need to do is look at characters and look at, you look at academies now, and back in the day, you used to look at the group that I was involved in at Dunfermline as a young boy, and there was probably 11 of the team could be the captain. There was all characters, there was all individuals, everybody had an opinion, but everybody had respect. Society's changed, where now we've got 11 players that can manage the ball and can do things with the football that are really special. But if I was to pick a captain in every age group, I would be doing well to get one, and I might get two in a special group. So I just kind of always try to keep. I used to always try to keep hold of that when I was doing the academy, and thinking that being technically good enough isn't going to be enough for you to play in the first team. It's the other bit, is can you deal with the environment? And I always thought that that's my grounding at Dunfermline. They taught me how to deal with the environment, probably more so than how to pass the ball. I genuinely felt that was the focus at Dunfermline, was that character, that real life football rather than sheltered academy football. And I think that's important.
What's your thoughts on modern day football and the whole academy systems and the way football is now set up and played?
My opinion, and it is just my opinion, and I think academies there's academies all across the country and all across the world doing really, really good jobs and doing so much work going into it. Again, anybody that's been involved in it previous will always think that their kind of era was the best, but I genuinely felt that I think we're too robotic now. I think we're looking for everybody to pass the ball, where we used to speak, everybody to play a certain way, everybody to look a certain way. They used to get up my nose when folk, they can't wear coloured boots and they can't wear their hair like that. They can't. We're turning, for me, there was a period there where everybody was just getting turned into robots, and we were all playing the same way, we were all passing the ball the same way, we were all trying to emulate what we were seeing on the television.
Pep Guardiola stuff, isn't it?
And again, I think it's where we have a problem is I don't think academy football mirrors first team football, and until we get that closer, then it's always going to be difficult for young players to step into it from an academy into a first team. Listen, it's happening, and there's a lot of good stuff happening. There's a lot of brilliant stuff happening, but I think that's where it becomes a little bit too mechanical, and I think the off the cuff bit isn't there, and I think we don't allow young players to be characters in their individual way, because express themselves. How it's all right. Why do we tell players how to express themselves? Surely, if a player's going to express themselves, they're making the decision on how they express themselves.
Yeah, it's a natural thing. Yeah,
for me, it is, and it's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing. But again, in hindsight, if you just keep linking it back to Dunfermline all the time, without knowing it, that's what was happening at Dunfermline. They were growing character, they were growing personalities, they were growing all that stuff alongside developing their football technique and game awareness.
Brilliant. See, by 2018, you'd gone from a player to a coach to academy director. You're now announced as a co-manager at Ross County. So how did that all come about, and what was that kind of like going from being a director at academy level to being a first team manager?
It wasn't part of the plan to be the first team manager. I was academy director, and when Stuart Kettlewell stopped playing, he had a problem with his hip, and I brought him in as our development manager. So he was looking after our development squad, and we shared an office for 3-4 years. And we had he was a player similar to myself. He had a work ethic similar to myself, and he had a real understanding of the game similar to myself. So we really hit it off on the coaching front through the academy and the development squad. And first team were obviously having a difficult time. Jim McIntyre had left after being really successful, and again an ex-Dunfermline player, manager, but he had won the League Cup for us, had really done a fantastic job. He had moved on. Owen Coyle had come in for a short period of time. Difficult spell, obviously taking over from Jim, who had done so well. And it wasn't quite working, and then the chairman looked to make a change again. And then I think he was looking for to just kind of get back to a wee bit more of a Ross County identity, I suppose. I had played over 200 games. I think Stuart had played over 150 games. We had been involved in the academy. We knew the players. We knew what was coming next. And I think the chairman gambled on the two of us and made the gamble as doing it, allowing us to do it together. I think that was important as well. It wouldn't work everywhere, but we just felt at that moment in time for what we needed to do, that was the right thing. So it kind of happened that way. We got the job. We had 10 games in the Premier League. We went right to the last game, but we didn't manage to stay in the Premier League. But the chairman had seen enough for us to take it in the Championship season the following year. Everybody knows, Dunfermline know more than most, how difficult it is to get out of the Championship. The chairman backed us, to be fair, in allowing us to do what we felt we needed to do and sign who we needed to sign to get out the Championship. So we had fantastic backing from the chairman, had a really close relationship with Stuart as co-manager, and we set out to try and win the Championship the first time we asked him. And thankfully we were able to do that. Thankfully we were able to do it in the way that we wanted to do it. It was really good trying to score a goal rather than trying not to concede a goal. And I think that's the best way to sum it up with Ross County for me. In the Premier League, we're trying to stay in the game, we're trying to not concede, and we're trying to steal a goal where we can, because that's just the nature of the beast. In the Championship, we were the team that probably were coming down from the Premier League and were deemed, although Dundee United spent big that season, changed their manager, etc., trying to get out as well. And it allowed us to go and express ourselves as coaches, trying to, we had in our head that we wanted 3 strikers on the pitch all the time. We had a certain way we wanted to do it. And, we did. We breeded a lot of young players that season. We won the Challenge Cup as well. We said we want to try and win everything that we entered for. And we were right. We didn't weaken any team. We felt we could win the league and win the cup. And we were able to do it. So again, from me, the personal point of view, it was an absolute pleasure working as close with Stuart. He's obviously doing a fantastic job at Motherwell just now. Really, really huge future in the game for me. He's very, very good. And his personality is completely different to mine. So we just felt the yin to the yang was already there. We both enjoyed coaching. We both enjoyed that opportunity to manage our club, as we seemed at the time that we'd been here so long. And to win the league was great. To win the cup was great. We recruited Ross Stewart from St Mirren. That's made the club a lot of money with the sell-ons that we managed to get in when we sold him to Sunderland, and then he moved on to Southampton. So from a financial model and from a recruitment model, it worked really well. Sold Jamie Lindsay as well, sold Josh Reed, sold Ross Stewart. So from that model, it was successful. On the pitch was successful because we won the league, won the cup, and then we stayed in the Premier League the following year. And that was the remit that we were given. And because the chairman, Roy McGregor's been so special to me through the years, to be able to deliver that for him, time where he needed it for his football club was important for me, and I know it was important for Stuart as well, that we were able to do that. So it was another special time.
Successful time. How did it work being a co-manager? Because you hear a lot of stories that the players might not know who to report to for certain things or who does what. So how did it work between you guys?
Yeah, honestly, it's so difficult to explain it. Nobody gets it. Nobody understands it. And that includes the chairman. I sat next to the chairman in a BBC open all mics thing, and he come out with, I don't know, I don't like co-managers. And me and Stuart were sitting next to him as his co-managers, because he didn't understand that in his business world, he doesn't think co-managers would work or could work. And I don't know how it worked. I don't know how it was so easy for Stuart and I, but it was. And I can't articulate how it was. There's nothing I can put my finger on it just all seemed very natural. I think it worked with Ross County. I think it worked at that time. Do I think it would necessarily work at another club at a different time? Probably not. But for what we needed to do, and the argument that I've got is the proof's in the pudding. We were tasked with winning the league, first time we asked in. We were tasked to try and make the club money in regarding recruiting and selling, which we were able to do. We chucked in the Challenge Cup, and then we stayed in the Premier League the following year. And that was what the remit was. So for anybody to say that it wasn't successful or it doesn't work, how does it work, or does it work, can it work? It clearly did in that moment in time. And obviously I'm doing what I do now and Stuart's doing what he does now, but it's a real special time for both of us. And listen, nobody can take it away from us. We did it.
A successful time. Why did it not continue? Was that kind of a mutual decision?
No, it wasn't. Chairman as he can do up here. Spoke to me in the January. He pulled me out of a training session and says, I want to speak to you. And I went and spoke to him, and he says, I don't want you to say anything, but at the end of the season, I want you to take over as chief executive and oversee the full club. And I want Stuart to continue as the manager, and he'll be allowed to bring in an assistant manager to coach alongside him. Don't say anything. Just go and think about it. That's exactly how it went. So again, I never asked to be the chief executive. I never asked to be split up from Stuart, and I never asked to be split up. We thought it was going really well. We were planning for the game on the Saturday. We were planning for turning our squad around a little bit. You know, we had an aging group by that time, and we had targets lined up to come in, and everything was working as normal. And the chairman is always is probably a couple of steps ahead of certainly me and his thinking, and that's where his thinking was, and that's where we find ourselves today.
How did you feel at that time? Were you angry because you're football minded? You just want to be a coach, a manager at that point?
It kind of took me by surprise. Obviously, I'd been involved at board level through when I was academy director, and obviously through football meetings and stuff like that. So I dipped my toe, but only dipped my toe. Like you said, I was UEFA Pro licence holder that had only ever coached after playing. So it was a big step for me. But again, I think it's one of, sometimes decisions are taken out of your hands, and I had a choice. I could have fought against it, but I obviously seen the wonderful opportunity of being a chief executive at a Premier League club as well. But it was just a change of thinking. I think what was important for me was that I needed to make that transition as quickly and as smoothly as I could, so Stuart would benefit in being out on his own, because it was difficult for Stuart as well. And I was obviously that ghost of Christmas past that was floating about, thinking, I would do it this way, I would do it that way. Stuart and I's relationship never wavered. My door was always open, as his was always open, and still is today. So we understood it, and I think that was the thing for me, was Stuart and I needed to get it, the understanding that this is what we were asked to do now, and this is the way that it was going to go. And listen, we moved on, and delighted to, obviously Stuart then left the club at some time later, and he's proven what a good manager and what a good coach and what a good person he is by the job he's doing at Motherwell. So again, as I said previous, everything happens for a reason, and that was a path for Stuart and I.
Brilliant. 2020 then you become chief exec of Ross County, and we could probably speak for hours about what the role entails, because it'll be a bit of everything. But what is your job? How could you sum up being a chief executive of a football club?
Again, I think Ross County is a unique club, and I think it's unique not just for where it is in the map, but the chairman is very unique in how he runs his football club and his businesses. And for me, at our club, the chief exec is all encompassing. I get my hands dirtier probably than any other chief exec because that's what we need to do. A number of my staff, if not all my staff, wear a couple of hats that we get every pound of flesh of everybody that works for Ross County. And that's a wonderful position to be in, that we've got staff like that. But from the chief exec point of view, it's chief exec / sporting director, because we don't have a sporting director the size of our club. So there's a bit, you get a bit of the football fix through that. Although I've got a commercial manager and a commercial team, you still have to oversee and manage the commercial side of the football club. So for me, to sum up what is the role of the chief executive at Ross County is just to manage the risk, Michael. I would say that's what it is. There's risk you have to take, but it needs to be taken in a way that doesn't jeopardise what we've done the last 30 years. And it has to be balanced in a way that we can still function and still compete in the Premier League, which is difficult. But I think 11 of the last 12 years in the Premier League says that we're getting more right than we're getting wrong. And obviously I'm day to day. I have a massive support from the chairman, and I have a massive mentor in the chairman in regarding that. I speak to him every day, multiple times, I would say. And to know that you've got somebody with his knowledge, not only having been the chairman for 30 years at a football club and been on the full journey, and that side is obviously the huge success he has and globally in his business. So, I never feel isolated. I never feel alone, I suppose, because you've got such a strong link with the chairman there. But it is managing risk is what we need to do, and supporting the departments the best way that I can to allow them to be able to do the job the way they want to do it would be the best way to sum it up.
How did you find that change from being a coach to being a chief exec who's dealing with spreadsheets and the business side of a football club and the operational side?
Yeah, challenging. My strength's always going to be on the football side. I'm much more comfortable when we're talking football, when we're talking the football business, is what comes really natural to me. But obviously understanding, governance and understanding operations and match day operations, and obviously commercial side's huge as well for income generation, to allow us to be able to do what we want to do in the football side. So it was a challenge. I'm not going to lie. Early days, there was definitely a wee bit of imposter syndrome in that. I was walking into things where I was just having to put some big boy pants on and take a deep breath and I suppose learn on the job, and that's what I did. And I went away and I done a couple of courses, and I went away and changed my network. Everybody was players, everybody was coaching, everybody was on pitch. I needed to get some chief execs, I needed to get some general managers, I needed to get some sporting directors in my little circle of network of people that I could go to, and spent a couple of years growing that and learning from people that know better than me, learning people that have walked in the shoes before me. And once I'd done that, I was then much more comfortable in the seat that I'm sitting in at the moment. But I had to make sure that I didn't want to let anybody down, so I needed to go and make sure that I did what I needed to do to have enough knowledge to be able to manage the football club the way that the chairman and the board want me to do it.
I'm guessing it's the type of role as well. You're always learning, aren't you? You can't just sit still. You're always trying to do things better, and even if you make mistakes, you then don't make that mistake again.
Every day genuinely is a school day, because it's one. Football's so fluid. Society is so fluid. There's nothing. What might work well this month, potentially it's not going to work next month. So it's just being able to be flexible and being able to think outside the box and being able to do that, but still stay true to yourself, as well as true to, I suppose, the culture and the vision of the football club, which is driven so hard by the chairman.
What's the most enjoyable part of the job?
Nothing changes, Winning games of football is the thing that gives me the most enjoyment. And why? It's simple, because the commercial can have a fantastic month and we don't win a game that month, and then nobody notices how well the commercial's done because everything's so pivotal around the first team and around what happens there. The academy can be doing great guns, but if we're not winning games, the shine's taken off of that. So for everybody to be able to grow and everybody the recognition they deserve for the job that they're doing, the great job that they're doing at Ross County, because we've a small team, a really small team for the Premier League, and I couldn't get any more out of the group that I've got in every department, but they're still at the whim of what the first team does, and that will never change in a professional football club. Never change. Doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter how good other things are. If we can't get it right on the pitch and we can't get it right at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, then we're always going to have people picking holes in the other stuff when it's probably not deserved.
Yeah, 100%. I can relate to that one. What would you say has been your proudest achievement during your tenure as chief exec so far?
The COVID period was big for me. I only just come in the job when COVID hit. So, we were the first club to get back training. We were the first club to have supporters in the stadium. We were first club to test, I think. So, listen, a lot of that was helped because of the size of our club and where we were in the country. We were in the Highlands, and it wasn't getting battered as much as the Central Belt initially. So we were in a position to be able to move a little bit quicker, but to orchestrate that and implement the stuff that we wanted to do I was proud of that because it was the unknown, and we got through it, and we felt we come out the other side strong. We relaunched we knew the landscape would change after COVID, so we chose to launch a new strategy for the football club just off the back of COVID and the landscape that we thought was coming. And, we weren't far off the mark on the stuff that we spoke about, and we felt we managed to get ahead of the curve. So if I was to pick something, been lots of stuff. The fact that we're still competing in the Premier League, our recruitment's been good. The recruitment as in staff as well as players has been good for our level. So, there's lots of things that we can be proud of, but if I was to pick one, just in the job and then having COVID hit was a challenge, and then made you feel that you wanted to be on the pitch rather than in a boardroom, that's for sure. But listen, we came out the other side stronger.
What a strange time, especially just starting a brand new job like that. That is the unknown to you. I thought
it was strange, and then I thought, well, maybe I was lucky because I didn't really know any different. So it wasn't that I was changing from someone else. I was actually just going into COVID, and then actually running a football club without COVID then became the change for me. But no, I have to thank the staff and the support I got from the board at that time, because you were asking people to work different ways and think different ways, and again I keep reiterating that you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. I genuinely believe that. It goes back to that Dunfermline days as a young boy, where if you're around all the people that you respect and you look up to, and they're good at their job, then you'd be really naive not to learn for these people. And I try to surround myself with people that are better than me, and there's certainly enough of them.
Because you always got to learn, eh? That's the thing. You never sit still, like you said.
You get past. You'll get left behind. You'll get left behind. And I genuinely believe that. And us as a club really promote that. That continued personal development for our staff and our players. Because today's yesterday's, it's old news, huh?
Yeah, that's it. What advice would you give someone, Stephen, who wanted to maybe advance into the kind of chief exec or a general manager role at a football club?
Be prepared to lose more than you win, because I think, and I didn't mean that negatively or stuff like that, but it's very difficult to win as the chief executive, because it's hard to define it. It's hard to articulate it, because 3 o'clock on a Saturday, if we score more goals than the opposition, then it's clearly that you're winning there. There's a league table. There's a lot of so much good stuff goes on when you're the chief executive through all your departments that still isn't enough. And you have to, if you were to take all the, I suppose if you were to take all the sticks a bit strong, but if you were to take the criticism and you were to take the knocks personally, then you wouldn't go to bed in the morning. It's that bit where you need to get back on the horse and you need to go again, and you need to let's look for the small wins, but be prepared for be prepared to lose as many as you win, because that's but get back on the horse again.
Yeah. What have you learned most about yourself?
I'm pretty resilient. I get knocked down, but I keep getting back up. And again, I credit that to my time at Dunfermline when I was a kid, because that's what was ingrained in you, that it's not all going to be a bed of roses. Ross County in the Premier League is tough, like really, really tough. It's tough where we are. It's tough financially because of just what we need to do to be able to compete in the Premier League, i.e. the travel, i.e. overnight stays, getting people to move up here, relocating people, whether it be staff or players. That's a big challenge. And so you need to be resilient. And again, you need to be prepared to take the knocks, but get back up and go again. If it doesn't work, then try a different way.
Brilliant answer, mate. Do you think you'd ever go back to the dugout? Or is this your pathway now, do you think, in football?
All my focus is on the job I'm doing just now, but I would never say never. But honestly, I don't think about it, because if I think about it, it might cloudy the waters for me. And now my waters are pretty clear. I know what I've got to do. I know what's expected of me. And that needs to be my focus rather than, listen, I see the boys out, I'm looking at them training just now. I look at the sun out, I look at the grass, I look at the balls. And I had an absolute ball when I was doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not getting asked to do that anymore. I'm getting asked to do something else. And it's somebody else's turn to go and implement their ideas and work with a group of players. And there's Don Cowie and Carl Tremarco and Paul Cowie is on the pitch at the moment coaching, and they know that they've got my backing 100%. And if I can do anything, the door's always open. And they know that they can come and speak anytime, which is a nice environment to be in.
Superb, mate. Just rounding up then, your career in football, how do you reflect on it to date? I'm
lucky. I thank my lucky stars every day almost, because listen, I was, I've just worked with some great people. I've worked at some great clubs. I'm involved in things that I never dreamt I would be involved in. And I think you need to take time to appreciate that sometimes, and I genuinely do. To be involved in football since I left school at 15, full time, not to be out of work. Again, being involved in some of the things I've been involved in, I deem myself extremely lucky, but I also need to pat myself on the back and say that I've worked extremely hard to be able to enjoy the moments I've enjoyed. And I think, as everybody knows, if you don't work hard and you don't give it 100%, then I don't think you get the opportunities. So I'm grateful for it. I've still got a fire in my belly. I've still got something burning that there's even more out there for me as an individual and for Ross County as a football club. And I suppose you're always searching for what's next and how can we make it better? How can I make myself better? How can I make the club better? How can I make the team better? So I don't think that fire's anywhere near going out. So I'll keep doing what I'm doing until I've not got the fight to do it. But at the moment, there's plenty of fight there.
Superb, mate. Final question. What does Dunfermline Athletic mean to Steven Ferguson?
It's a funny one. Again, me and you joked about it before we even came on to this when we were talking on the phone. Considering I've played loads of games for Dunfermline, I don't know why Dunfermline has such a big hold on me or even such a big influence on my thinking. I could not speak highly enough about every single person that I encountered at Dunfermline when I was at the football club. That was on the pitch, off the pitch. Guys my age, senior players, backroom staff, supporters, even the town. I just think, for me, Dunfermline's a special club. For me, Dunfermline's a huge club. And for me, I hope everybody realises that works at Dunfermline how special an opportunity they've got to be involved in what they're doing at the moment, which I know they do, and they're working extremely hard. I would love to see Dunfermline back in the Premier League. It's a club that listen, they've been brilliant for me, brilliant in shaping my career, but that was around the people that were working there at the time, and it is a special club. To sum it up, I'll always be grateful for them to Dunfermline Athletic.
Class, mate. Am I right in saying that's a quote from Andrew Carnegie on your office wall as well?
It is indeed.
So you've got that Dunfermline link still.
Teamwork is the ability to work together towards a common vision. It is the fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results. Andrew Carnegie.
Superb, eh? You can't escape Dunfermline, mate.
It's in the blood, mate. It's in the blood.
Superb. Well, I wish you all the best at Ross County, Stephen, and thanks again for your time. That's been brilliant.
Top man, Mike. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to Walking Down the Holbeath Road, and a big thank you to our latest guest, Steven Ferguson, for joining us on this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Walking Down the Holbeath Road on your favourite podcast platform so you will never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, remember to leave us a little rating and review, as it helps us reach more Pars fans just like you. This podcast was produced by Jan Motkiewicz and music supplied by Stuart Dusty Miller. Thanks once again for listening, and we look forward to walking down the Holbeath Road once again next month. Thank you.